Hello, everyone, and welcome to Immigration Talk Show. I'm your host, Sam. And today we are here with another very exciting and important discussion that is lined up just for you. So make sure to watch this webinar till the end because this is really going to be very important. And before diving into the topic and also inviting our today's very special guest, let me read out this very important disclaimer. By watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not a legal advice. So, use of information at your own risk. All right, with that, friends, once again, welcome back everyone to Immigration Talk Show. I'm your host, Sam. And we are live on YouTube, available on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram as well. And if you haven't followed us on these many platforms, then please do it right now. And also make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to Immigration Talk Show. Our handle is at Immigration Talk Show. So, talking about today's topic, I think this is a much needed one. And that is what are the top alternatives to the H-1B visa in the US? So, of course, friends, whenever we talk about, go and work in the US, we always have this thing in our mind that, oh, now I have to look for the H-1B visa. But is it the only option for you to work in the US? Or there are some more alternatives that you are not aware of? If yes, then I think this is a must watch session because in this webinar, we are going to share some great alternatives to the H-1B visa where you can have a great life in the US and you can have your dream come true. And some visas that are really easier to get, faster to process, and perfect for your goals. So, without any further ado, also let me welcome our today's very special guest and very honorable one as well, none other than Ruby Pars, who is a board certified immigration attorney and also the founder of Pars Law Group in Houston. With nearly 2 decades of experience, she is not only a skilled legal expert but also a passionate advocate for immigrants and their families. And there are more to go. She's an author, educator, and a respected voice in national media like the New York Times, CNN, and BBC World News. So, friends, whether in the courtroom, classroom, or community, Attorney Ruby is driven by one mission that is to empower and advocate for others. So, hi, Ruby, and thank you so much for being here. It's really our honor to have a show with you. So, hope you're doing great.
Thank you, Sam. That was a very warm welcome. I'm very honored. Great to be back.
Absolutely. And to me also, I'm also very excited for this session because, right, Ruby, this is a much needed one. Right now, if we talk about current scenario, then everything is happening. I mean, most of the hot topic is happening with the H-1B workers. So
Yeah,
I think it's a very important one.
right. This is that time, the registration happened, those were chosen. Of course, we're talking about the cap, but again, cap, if you're cap exempt, you can apply at any time.
Mhm.
But what if you weren't chosen? What are options and what are alternatives? So that is a hot topic.
A very hot topic. And of course, I think, friends, this is a very important one. So you shouldn't also miss out. And to keep watching, also make sure that you have liked, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you haven't done it, then do it right now. Okay, so I think, Ruby, before diving into the topic, I also want to know it from you that what our viewers can expect from today's episode. If you can
Well,
just give
I'm
us a brief.
Yeah, I'm going to give a little overview of the H-1B program. A lot of people already know that probably who are watching, but then I want to give like a walkthrough of some alternatives to keep in mind. And in many cases, when individuals come to us or employers, HR advisors, CEOs, we walk through this option when we're talking about whether their candidates are eligible or not, and what would happen if they don't get chosen, with the registration process. But sometimes you're just fingers crossed everything's going to get approved and the registration happens, and so maybe you weren't really looking at the backup plans in earnest, and now it's time to do that because the first round has been chosen, and we're not sure if they're going to run more rounds of the registration through list of the registration numbers and names later on in the year to meet the numbers of the visa quotas. But yeah, we're going to walk through those, and then I can also stay on and answer some questions as well.
Wow. That's great. And I think this is really going to be a game changer episode because, Most of the time people are just crazy about H-1B, and of course, it's a very popular and demanding visa. So I think, friends, this is a must watch session. And with that, Ruby, here's my very first question to you.
Okay.
If we talk about current scenario, then of course we have seen so many things that's happening, especially talking about recent news that Silicon Valley and tech giants H-1B layoffs are happening. So
Mhm.
I want to know it from you, like keeping the current scenario in mind, do you think that H-1B visa is still popular for international workers, or are other visas becoming more attractive for them?
I think it's still attractive for the individual in the international worker space. There's a lot of different industries, growing ebbs and flows. And for the most part, the employment-based visa processing has not been changed that dramatically in the new administration, unlike some other areas. And
Mhm.
so I think a lot of there I know there's a huge labor shortage in different areas, and I think that the employers are still wanting to lean in to fill those roles with the H-1B. So I know that like sometimes there can be layoffs and changes in the labor market, but there are a lot of there's a lot of room for growth, and there are a lot of demand. So I think it's still it exists for a reason, for that educated specialized skill type of a worker. And the alternatives are really just if this doesn't work, but for the most part this is the ideal visa for certain types of work. And sometimes you just have to find an alternative temporarily until you have a chance to try again at the registration process.
That's right. And I think that's perfectly explained. So thank you so much, Ruby, for putting up this. And I also want to know, like, go ahead with the next question, and that too a very important one.
Mhm.
So besides the H-1B, of course, we have alternatives, but we want to know it from you in a detailed manner. If you can explain, like, which visa would you like to recommend for international workers and why?
Well, if I may show a little, I have a few slides about a couple of options,
Okay.
and I can sort of walk through what those might be. But there isn't, necessarily one that's like, okay, this is the alternative for everyone, because it really depends on your skill set, what your goals are, what the employer's goals are as well, and also like, are you bringing in family? Does the spouse need to work? Lots of those types of things. Those are all things to consider. So if I can, I think you can see my if I can share my screen, I'll go ahead and walk through a couple things. So just like you mentioned, I'm board
Sure.
certified, about 17 years of experience. So bringing that to the table, we had the H-1B lottery or registration, if you will. It was closed out on March 24th. And we found out the results leading up to March 31st, a couple of days early for some folks. And then those who were chosen have to submit the I-129 before June 30th. And so those who choose not to go forward, or those who are found out not to be eligible, then those visas are going to go back to the drawing board, and they'll be giving those out to other individuals who had already registered. And so that but it is important to note it takes a while for them to go through that process. And so don't put all your eggs in that basket, as we one would say. If you have a U.S. Masters, we know you have a higher selection chance. You get two lottery attempts. And the second lottery possibilities, you can see that there were extra selection rounds done in many of the last years, except for in 2023. And really, it's going to depend on how many people go forward and apply, or who might be denied. And again, like I just want to mention, it could be that you are CAP exempt in certain universities and affiliated nonprofits, nonprofit research institutions, government research. So keep that in mind, because then you don't have to be concerned about this time frame of going through the registration process. Okay, so that is something to note. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into some of those alternatives. Um, So the O1, okay, this is one that, individuals with exceptional skills, science, education, business, or athletics. Now, it is a pretty high standard, but if you can meet the qualifications, so three of the eight O1 criteria in published work, major awards, membership in elite organizations, then this can be a really great option that could buy you some time here, and maybe you could switch over to another visa later on, or it could be a pathway to a green card, maybe a national interest waiver or something along those lines. Now, again, if a person doesn't meet H-1B for any reason because they don't aren't make it in the registration process, they could go work on their skill set, their expertise, and then either try again the following year and or start building up their resume for potential O1. So this one is a one really good option, but the standard is pretty high, and it's not just for everybody. The L1, which I think somebody put a question about that. So you're usually looking at L1A for managers and executives. The bottom line with this one is that you've worked 1 year in the last 3 years in the foreign country, and then they're intercompany transferring you over here.
Mhm.
There could be L1A for managers, executives. There's the L1B for employees and specialized knowledge, and there's also can be the blanket L. And some companies might qualify; they didn't realize that they did, and that could make it a lot easier for them to qualify for their employees. But the biggest thing to remember is 1 year in the last 3 years that they worked for the foreign based location and that
Mhm.
they're transferring over here. So that could mean like, okay, you didn't make it this time, go work for the company abroad for 1 year and then work on being transferred after that has happened. So that can be a great option. The other thing that's great about the L's is that spouse can work, and L1A has a 7 year cap and L1B has 5, but you can recapture time just like the H1B. And if you're gone from the country for one entire year, you can restart the clock as well.
Mhm.
There's actually an L1 new office. So if you were to go start a company abroad and you wanted to make a new office in the US, you could also come here on the new office L.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so sorry, Ruby, but
yeah,
like asking you, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but
no problem.
can you also please let us know the L1 and O1, how much long does it take for a process to get in completion? Because I think for H1B it takes years and years. So what's about the O1 and L1 also process? If you could please let us know about it.
You mean
The visa
completion?
process.
You mean like what's the max of it, or how long does it take to get it if you were to change status to it or to apply for it?
Not changing the status, only the beginner who is just going to, apply for the visa for the L1. So maximum, if you could please let us know approximate time, like how much will it take for that applicant to get the L1 visa approved?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you could do either consular processing or you can do a change of status depending on where you are, and it really could mean a matter. So there's one aspect of how long does it take to get you your all your evidence
Yeah.
together, right?
Okay.
So that really is up to you and your attorney. And then there's how long does it take with the government to process. So let's talk about the consulate because this affects pretty much everything we're talking about here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a lot of consulates that have been locations have been closing. There's been some staffing changes. I actually saw a headline about the State Department even today, that there's some changes happening. And when administrations change, usually there's a shift in personnel. Why does that? What does that mean? Well, it could mean that things are going to take a little longer, or things that we knew before are not what they are today. So you can look online to see what the visa processing times are, visa wait times for certain visas at different posts around the country, around the world. I don't know if they're all accurate, but hopefully they are. Um, and so it could be a matter of that processing time. Also, with the change of status, if you can do a premium processing,
Okay.
right? That's $2,850, right? Yeah, and you can get the decision in um, about 3 business weeks. That's
Okay.
not available for everything, but yeah, so I mean, I didn't exactly answer one exact answer for everything because it depends. Some things have premium processing, some don't. Some you might want to do a change of status because you're here in the country.
Okay.
Some you're going to do straight up consular processing.
Mhm.
So it really can depend on that. So I think it really will. How quickly can you get the evidence you need? A lot of cases, I'm just going to tell you, it can take, I don't know, 3 to 6 months sometimes for clients to, like an O or a national interest waiver. Really see a lot of clients take about 6 months to get that together. So anyway, hopefully that gives a little perspective, but the processing times have been ebbing and flowing. So you really look to the State Department website about how long it takes to get a visa scheduled. You
Mhm.
also can look to the processing times on USCIS website. And then you also look to how long does it take for you to get your documents in order and how busy is your attorney. So a combination of all those factors.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a little different thing. It depends upon case, and we can't just give exact number that these many months will be there and you'll get your visa. But also, Ruby, if you could also let us know that how L1 is better than H1B, or in what terms, if you can just give a brief comparison between the two visas so that it will be a little easier for us to understand that why this is one of the alternatives of H1B.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so one of the biggest things is that the L allows a spouse to work, and the H4, it's in very rare circumstances if they have like a perm pending, can they do that? That's
Mhm.
one big thing. The second thing is the L1A is usually goes to an EB1C or more of a green card pathway, and you don't really have to wait too long to be in that L1A role to do that. So that seems to be a natural progression. The L1B, you're given that 5 years, but again, if you leave the country at during summer holidays, whatever, you can recapture that time. But it's a perfect. Um, it works really well with the perm process, just like the H-1B does. So it's, I mean, it doesn't mean like it's astoundingly better necessarily, but those are some of the things to consider. And you're not, you know, relegated to the registration process. If you
Yeah.
meet the qualifications, and you could apply it whenever you qualify, the 1 year in the last 3 years, and the company wants to go through the process. So those are the things that come to mind that just sort of jump out at me. Yeah.
All right, that's great. And so sorry, Ruby, to cut your flow. You were going exceptionally flawless. Then please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, I mean, there's still the STEM OPT extension. There have been a lot of like student revocation visas, unfortunately, in the last, week or two, but there has been a lot of litigation reinstating those. So, that's a very hot topic right now where things are, and usually that is a pipeline, right? It's usually F1 to H1B. That's a traditional pipeline. And then having the STEM allows you to have a couple bites of that registration apple, if you will. And so, that was great when they did the extension of the STEM OPTs. So, that's another thing what most people know about that.
Mhm.
Anyway, this next one is really only specific to Canadians and Mexicans. And this is so it probably doesn't cross some people's minds, but if you are eligible because of nationality, certain professions like a certain instructor, teacher, or lawyer, accountant, engineers, scientists, there are certain professions that are eligible for the visa, and Mexicans have to apply at the consulate.
Mhm.
Canadians can apply directly at the port of entry. It's really seamless for the Canadians. And so this can be a really great option. It's a non-immigrant visa. Spouses cannot work, but there really isn't what do you call a expiration date? No, that's not the right word. I'm trying to say there's not a limit to how many you can extend it to. So some people can be in it for quite a while, but this is very limited to just those two nationalities. Another thing that's limited to nationality is the E2. So it could either be for the investor or the employee. But so maybe if you're like, I want to invest and be an entrepreneur and not actually be an employee, this is another option.
Mhm.
So it doesn't, the countries do not include India or Venezuela, but they do include Pakistan and Mexico, for example. And depending on the reciprocity, you might get up as much as 5 years at a time, which is awesome because it's difficult to run a business. I mean, I know I've had one for like 15 plus years.
Mhm.
And it's difficult when you're in a foreign land and you're learning how things work, right? And so the E2 could be you make a business up from scratch. It could be you buy a franchise, and you also could be an employee of like if you're Pakistani, you could be a Pakistani employer of a Pakistani E2 business, for example.
Mhm.
Um, just to give an example. So this is a substantial investment, and and the other thing is spouse is allowed to work, so that's another great one to have as well. The H3 is another potential option. This is if your employer wants to bring you here to do some training, learning something specific to the way the business is done, and this could be a short term visa to come here to the United States. It could help build up your resume, build up your options for the company wanting to keep keeping you in the fold and supporting you and keep trying at the H-1B in the future or some other
Mhm.
mechanism, or even to do the perm process. Who knows? So this is something I think a lot of people don't realize it exists, but it's an option. CPT program, and then like there's the EB, there's the green card options. But again, like if you don't have a basis to stay in the country while you're doing it, then it would be done outside. I rarely find through consular processing, I really find a lot of employers willing to do this unless you've already had some type of relationship where they've seen your work product and want to petition for you. So, but at least I'm just throwing that out there as these are other options, including the national interest waiver, which it was um, a little bit, the standard was more clarified and easier under the prior administration, and we're starting to see things change as to
Mhm.
what is the national interest truly. And some of the things have differed dramatically. And then also, just the standard has gotten a lot more stringent. So there were a ton of applications in the prior 4 years and a lot of approvals. And I think we're going to see a lot stricter adjudication. um, thinking about dependent visas, who can work and who can't. We sort of ran through that while we were talking. In some limited cases, about the H4, very limited. L2 is allowed to, and E2 is allowed to as well. And so, just evaluating what your options are. And the other thing to consider is maybe your spouse can apply for something, and then you can be a dependent. For example, if like they can apply for an E2 or an L, and you would be able to work on the dependent visa. So I often like to talk to individuals and say, what's your spouse doing? I don't mean to be, you know, too inquisitive, but I mean, it's really because maybe we can have two options running at the same time. And, if we can look at their resume, we can try to see what we could try to get them into a visa, and then that can option, and especially if they have another nationality as well, that can also play into your options. So anyway, that was more or less some of the, those are some of the things to consider. There's also like the J1 and some other options, or going back to school, the F1. Some people do that and get another degree and then have no more options on the OPT, but that can get costly. So, it might not be what people want to do. So,
That's right.
um, that's a little bit in the summary of some options for individuals.
I think that was wonderful, and Ruby, thank you so much for putting up so much effort and preparing this presentation and showing up in front of our viewers. I think this was really giving a proper understanding and in a very detailed manner to each visa alternatives. Right? I think this was really important and much needed. So once again, I would say thank you so much for bringing that up. And friends, I'm sure that you have went through the presentation, and in case if you have any question regarding any visa or anything, then please go ahead and put your questions on the comment section. As I can see, there are so many people have joined us: Jadav, Shokat, and Jose. So hi guys, and thank you so much for posting your questions on Immigration Talk Show. We will definitely take these questions, but let me go ahead with one more question that I have. So, Ruby, I think, of course, this was a really very well presented, and we have got the understanding what each visa is made up of. So, I would like to know from your end that you are an immigration attorney and you have like a very good experience. So, according to you, what is that eye-opening case that you have went through where an alternative visa, anything O1, L1, or J1 have worked better for an individual who initially considered the H-1B? If you could please let us know any
Oh,
case study, I think that would
well,
be great. Yeah.
it might take me a minute to think about that, but because sometimes when individuals um, don't make the registration, we part ways and they maybe don't try again, or they with the employer that I was working with, and maybe they go to another employer perspective and another attorney. But I'll just share one thing that came to mind recently because I see a question about TPS and someone having TPS.
Yeah.
We
Great.
just recently we had the whole Venezuelan TPS concern, and so we were like, okay, let's go out there. Let's check out. Maybe we have an H-1B. Let's do a registration. Let's consider other options. And not only did the TPS like get, I guess what's the right word? I don't know. There's so much litigation going on, but like
Yeah.
I don't think reinstated. I don't know. It's we still have it, right? I'm a loss for the words at the moment, but the client was chosen the H-1B registration, and we're working on an O as well. So I'm really happy for the client that we have, that we tried, that we put her hat in the ring, and she got a couple options, and the TPS didn't end, and so that gives us more options as well. So that I think really it is a team effort, right? It's the prospective employee or the employee, it's the employer, and it's the attorney. They all have to be working together in unison, and if anybody wants something different, it might, put the process, hold it back, or not be able to go forward. So I think one of the things to say is just the more communication, the more the buy-in from the employer, the better, because then you're more willing to consider options, because sometimes employers are like, I'm going to try. If it doesn't work,
Mhm.
it is what it is, unfortunately. Or depending on the situation, they might work really hard to find other alternatives. So, um, yeah, that was a happy. We're still in the process, but it was a happy story so far, considering everything that's going on. So,
Absolutely, and that was really great. And also talking about TPS, Ruby, as you mentioned. So I think let's take up a viewer's question as well. So Jose
yeah.
is here, and Jose has asked, "Can I apply for H4 even if I have pending asylum and TPS?"
All right. Oh, righty. Okay, so I just listened to a CLE, Continue Legal Education, like about a couple hours ago on transitioning TPS,
Okay.
because it can be confusing, and it was an attorney who presented to other attorneys. But let me just issue spot with you some of the things that come to mind with this question. So the good thing about the H4, it's a dual intent. That's great. Asylum has a lot of immigrant intent in there about wanting to stay here in the country, and the TPS is, well, we won't. That's a temporary status. Now, one of my biggest questions to you, and we might not solve it on today's call, but I would say it's a consultation, is like, how did you enter? Did you have any unlawful presence time at all between your entry and applying for asylum or TPS? And did you ever work unlawfully? So those would be some of my questions, because depending on some of those answers, most of those answers will affect whether you could do a change of status to the H4 or not. But as I was saying, that call that I was on was really about this particular issue. How can we transition those who are on TPS to other things, especially with we don't know what the future of a lot of the TPS is. Now, just in general, I when people have an asylum pending and they try to switch to another status, there's lots of different factors involved about whether they ever had worked illegally, had any unlawful presence, how they entered, and also can depend heavily on where they are trying to do a change of status,
Mhm.
or an adjustment of status. And so that's where this can get a little tricky. So anyway, that's pretty much the extent of my answer. It is in theory possible, but it
Yeah.
really depends on your entry, how much unlawful presence or unlawful status time, and if you worked illegally in between your statuses. It would help answer the question. So I need to know that information.
That's right. All
Okay.
right. And Jose has shared something, so let me take up this as well. I entered with the tourist visa and I applied for asylum while I was here as a tourist.
hmm So in general, it should work. We didn't talk about working illegally or anything else or
Mm-hmm.
any other aspect, but in general, if you entered legally and went from a status to a status, but I would be curious. Sometimes asylum is not considered a status, asylum pending. And I've seen this be inconsistent around the country interpretation. So, really like to also see when you got your TPS in view of when your tourist visa expired. So, yeah,
All right.
I don't know if we're going to solve it on this call. Like we might, because I would probably want to look at some documents and dates. But yeah.
Absolutely. I think that would be great. And Jose, why don't you go ahead and get in touch with attorney Ruby Pars because she's definitely going to help you out. And we also have her email ID, phone number, and website, and that is just on the screen. Yeah, this is the number 713-589-2085. With the email ID, you can also ask question by emailing her, and that is contact@rubypowerslaw.com. And you can also visit her website, that is www.parslaw.com. So, Jose, go ahead and get in touch with Attorney Ruby. And till the time, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, and also make sure to get in touch with us as well and subscribe to our channel now. So, I think, Jose, you got your answer. And in case if you have any follow up, then please go ahead and ask another question. We are here for another half an hour and we will take your question again. So, Ruby, I think let me take up Shokat's question now. And
Mhm.
Shaukat is saying, I'm a current student on an F1 visa and I'm looking at options after my STEM OPT expires. So, could you help me understand the possibilities for transitioning into a work visa that doesn't require a lottery? Or is there something else I should be looking at?
I think we covered a lot in the presentation at the beginning, so maybe you answered your question since you asked this. It also depends on your nationality, and if you have a spouse, what their nationality, and like what other options there may be. Like we said, the E2, the L, the O, TN, H3. You could also go back to school. We didn't mention this, but there is the diversity lottery for certain nationalities. That also is another lottery. We are trying to stay away from the lotteries here. But I just wanted to mention that one because I didn't talk about that. There's also the religious worker or one.
Yeah.
There's some of those other ones, or if you invest, there's also some creativity happening where, like, I mean, this might be too creative, but like if you get a visa, if you can get a citizenship in another country that qualifies for the E2, for example, and then wanting to, or it qualifies for the TN, or something like that. So you can think about those types of things as well. And while people are waiting out to come back in potentially, or if you're running out of status here, there's a lot of nomad visas that are around the world that can give people options to temporarily live in other countries where maybe they're working remotely for an American-based company, potentially, I don't know, but there maybe the individuals not in their home country, whatever their goals are, So really thinking outside the box is another thing when you're exploring alternatives as well. So hopefully some of that helps, but doesn't take the place of a consult. But yeah, there's exploring those options are important.
That's right. And I think thank you so much, Ruby, for putting up that. And Shaukat, also, thank you so much for asking this question. In case if you have any follow up or want to know more about the topic, then please feel free to put them in the comment section. We will definitely take them up. And also, Ruby, as you mentioned about remote work and nomad visas. So I think let me also deep dive into this question that with remote work as it is becoming very common after pandemic especially, so how useful are visas like B1 or digital nomad visas for people who don't want to work, who don't want to go with H-1B?
Well, you mean so it's really important to be careful about whether you're physically located in the US and you're using the visa that doesn't allow you to work. So I'm not talking about that, but what I'm saying is like if an individual, let's say they're running out of, I don't know, H-1B time, and someone they didn't get petitioned, or they're running out of F-1 and OPT time, but they still want to stay relevant and in touch with like a US based company. Potentially, they could go work abroad, either like purposely, like with the foreign company's location, the company's foreign location in 1 year in the last 3 years, so they can get transferred over on an L, or maybe they just go work on the nomad visa, a nomad visa somewhere. I think they're popping up everywhere. Um, Still working for the company, but they're not physically located in the US, so they don't have to have US employment authorization. But like what I've seen almost all the time is that you need to be in the US to build the connections with the US employers, to have somebody who knows you, to have some reason that they want you particularly, because there's it's when you see a lot of different resumes, but and they're trying to choose from one person to the next, it really can depend on having that like that little extra connection as well. But
That's
if they know that they can keep working together, but maybe you're in another country on some type of temporary visa where it's legal for you to be over there, but you're still working for the US based company. Also, could be possible you're working for the US based company and you're in the perm process too, and that that you're temporarily abroad waiting for more of a long term solution for a green card potentially. So it's a very mobile world, and just sort of have to think creatively. Um, but you also need to have an employer that really wants you to. So that unless you create your own opportunity and have your own business potentially.
That's right. That's wonderful. And also, Ruby, as you mentioned about that, it is also important to build up connections and to have a good networking, right? So you are an expert. So there are another question also that our viewers mostly ask that how can they build up a better connection or have a better contacts? So if you could also give us a brief about just a little guidance, how can they have a better connection to US employers or people those who want to get in touch with the US people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it can go different ways. Like it could be making a connection on LinkedIn, standing out somehow and trying to make a contact. I think it helps if you're a friend of a friend or something like that, where you're like, so and so said we should talk, or I'd love to make a connection with you. I think that warms things up and opens the door. If you're able to come to the US on like a B1, B2, whichever what your intent is, and you can go to some conferences or have some meetings, that aren't necessarily work, but you can make some connections, and then that can help start the conversation in the future that could carry through on over LinkedIn or Zoom and phone and things like that. I think that's why it's so valuable for those who've gone to school in the US, on an F1 or a J1, or temporarily even on exchange of some sort, because they've come to the US, they've made a connection, they've built up a little bit of a network, and that is helpful. But if you don't have that, then you got to work a little harder in different ways. Like maybe it could be through a webinar or through mutual contacts putting you in touch, um, LinkedIn, or just reaching out to somebody and see if they'll respond. Those are just some, going to conferences. Those are some of the things that come to mind as well.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And, these are the things that needs to brushen up through and through, because most of the time our viewers forget about these, small pointers, and then they just get in trouble. So I think, Ruby, that was really important. And thank you so much for shedding light on those. And I think till now you have covered a lot of things. And I think let me go ahead with Jadav's question here. So, hi Jadav, and thank you so much for putting up your question. He's saying, I'm currently on an L1 visa, and while it's a great option, that's right, I'm wondering if there are any other alternative for someone in my position who wants to stay in the US long term but has a unique set of skills.
Yeah. So I think we covered a little bit of that in the presentation part, but usually if you're on an L1A, you're going to want the company to petition for your green card within those 5 years so that you don't run out of L
Mhm.
time unless you can recapture it. And that's usually your manager or executive of a department or individuals, and you can show how essential you are. The L1B, it's the perm process, and that can take a few years. And so you don't want them to wait too long to start that up because you want to make sure that you get it moving. If there's an audit, that could delay you some time. And unfortunately, and you really don't have a lot of control over that. But it can happen. So the L1A and the L1B, they are a natural pathway to a green card.
Mhm.
But if you're saying, but they are dependent on the company being playing ball and being involved in that. So if they don't want to, or they get to it late, or you don't like the terms or whatever, if you have a unique set of skills, it could be an O1 or a national interest waiver. Those are the things that come to mind right away. Now, again, the national interest waiver is a green card process. You don't have to be in the U.S., but if you could take the control of that in your own hands. You don't have to have a job offer. So let's say the company is not wanting to do a perm or the EB green card process for you. I don't know which L you are, but then you want to take control of your destiny with a national interest waiver, or even potentially an O as well. So those could be some options. Again, we're just talking hypothetical without having more details, but that comes to mind as an answer.
All right, that's great. Okay, so thank you so much, Jadav, for your question, and hope you got your answer. In case if you still have any follow up or want to know more, then please go ahead and put them in the comment section, and we will definitely have a lovely conversation on that as well. So don't hesitate and put them right on there. And also, I would like to say, Ruby, with your permission, we do have some of our viewers in Facebook as well. So I think should we take up those questions as well if you're comfortable?
Yeah, yeah. I've got maybe another 10 or so minutes, so we can take some questions. So sounds good.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so Control, if you could please share the screen. All right. So this is the question we got from anonymous participant, and it is me and my husband are both Sudanese. I am a U.S. citizen, and my husband is currently living in Egypt. We recently got married through Sharia law, but we haven't traveled to see each other. So we don't have any pictures together. Unfortunately, we have a marriage certificate. Okay. Due to current circumstances, I'm not able to visit my husband in Egypt. So is there a way I can still submit the I-130 form without having to travel? I'm desperate for help. Any piece of advice, please help. Thank you.
Okay, so without me checking some things online, these are some of the issues you have to work through. Um, this sounds like this was a proxy marriage. I don't know if they were physically together when the marriage happened. If it was a proxy marriage, um, well, according to the law, I'm trying to remember if it's a regulation or where,
Mhm.
um, the relationship has to be consummated. So anyway, we're getting into some complicated territory if you physically cannot. Um, so let's just go back a second. Was this a proxy marriage, which means that you weren't physically at the same place when the marriage was officiated? That's going to cause more complications. Okay. And then the other one is that is the law of the land that where it was officiated, is that legal? Is that the way you have a legal marriage? So those two things, and then plus the fact that you haven't seen each other in a while,
Mm-hmm.
those things are issues that I would my issue spotting brain is bringing up. Um, so if any of those are going to be an issue, then it probably is not safe to file the I-130. And I will say that when couples haven't seen each other for a while, I see the USPS and the State Department give a really tough time. So I think you might want to try really, 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 really hard to go see each other and
Mm-hmm.
make sure it's legal wherever you officiated it without me knowing that off the top of my head. Um, and um, and I mean that's just the bare minimum, right? The other aspects are, commingling funds, photos, leases, taxes, all that other stuff. But I'm just trying to issue spot like the crux of the legality of the relationship. So anyway, I that's definitely a consult situation because the you have to look at the reciprocity and the family foreign affairs manual and things like that about the laws of the country that you officiated at. So it can get complex. So
That's right. I think, of course, those pointers are very great. And Ruby, I think we are definitely going to share with our viewers about the pointers, and I'm sure they will get their, solution in a better way. So let's move ahead with our next comment that we got. And Helen is here. Helen is saying, "Hi everyone, my employer applied for my H-1B in January and I got approval last month. I applied for change of status for my spouse from F2 to H4 with the I-539 form online 3 days after my employer filed my H-1B. So currently, the I-539 form is pending. I received the receipt notice for the I-539 form online in the account, but never received it in a mail. So is it normal? Will they send the receipt notice through mail for form I-539? I checked the address I put in there and it is correct. Anyone experience the same? Please let us know. Yeah.
well, okay, if they're sending it through USPS, I mean, it's been known to not work all the time, right? If you have an attorney, which I think you do, the attorney might have gotten the notice, so check to see what they got, because
Yes.
that's one of the benefits of having an attorney is that you get a copy and they get a copy, and if there is an email loss, that you have it in both places. I think there was a lot of change happening in the last few months with the change in administration, so it's quite possible that something went awry. But there's also, you can call USCIS and say you didn't get the notice and see if they'll send it to you again
Mhm.
after they confirm your address, all of that type of stuff. And sometimes when people just somehow the apartment number or the suite or the whatever, a drive or road gets taken off and or a zip code, and it could be a clerical error that has nothing to do with you or your attorney.
Mhm.
So those are just some things that come to mind, but it can happen.
That's
Um, I could
that's
probably take one more question if it's brief. So
Okay, that's great. And I think this was really important. And we are definitely going to share with Helen that how much it is important to have in touch with attorney. It's not only for Helen. I would suggest that, friends, it is a very tough time right now. And I think it will be great if you can directly get in touch with the attorney. So here are the contact details. As below your screen, you can see it is moving continuously throughout the show, the email ID, the contact number with the website of attorney Ruby L. Power. You can get in touch with her and also have any question or any issue if you're facing. You can directly share her on the contact number that is 713-589-2085, and the email ID is contact@rubyparslaw.com, and the website is www.rubyparlaw.com. So this is the contact detail, and with that, I think let me go ahead and take up another question that we got from James. So he's saying, "Hi everyone, our PD of Form I-130 is on September 21, 2013. That is F3 category, married son or daughter. Petitioner is US citizen. So until which month can we expect to be approved? Please guide. Thanks.
Oh, well, who knows the answer? You go to the Visa Bulletin and you put on your thinking cap, and then um, you didn't tell me what country. You
Yeah,
didn't,
country it wasn't
yeah,
mentioned.
it
Mhm.
was not mentioned. So, um, okay, Mexico. Okay, oh, Mexico. Okay, so, and then you said, could you put the question up a little bit higher, bigger again? So you said third preference, unmarried. So Mexico, third preference. For April's calendar, the final action dates for Mexico, third preference, they're working on January 2001.
Mhm.
So about 12 years away from your, and the same for dates of filing. So they're about 12 years away from
Mhm.
the date you just said, um, if it is in fact Mexico. So you just have to go to the Visa Bulletin every month and watch it. Again, it could move. A lot of times, things move really quickly in October when the fiscal year begins, and they clear out some cases. Sometimes people get green cards other ways, or they decide not to proceed, or they're not eligible, what have you. So and do remember, like this doesn't if the individual is staying in the United States, it doesn't make them eligible to be in the U.S. just by having an I-130 pending. You need to have some other visa to allow, or you could be outside, preferably outside of the country if you don't have status. And so these are just, things to consider, as well as making sure that you don't overstay or work illegally, things like that. So it is unfortunately going to take a while, especially if the country of origin is Mexico.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's move ahead with the next comment. And the next comment that we have got is another from anonymous participant. Is about last April 9th, 2025. My USC husband received an email saying USCIS has taken an action on our case. Till then, we did not have any further updates. We checked our document tab, but there's nothing there. PD was January 13, 2024. I am worried as it is already 15 months and I have seen a lot of approvals around our PD. So, what could it possibly mean?
Is this an immediate? This is an immediate relative I-130. I did just.
Mhm.
That's only a couple weeks ago. Um, I if this is an immediate relative, I-130 spouse, I did, or even just immediate relative, I did get an I-130 approved for something I filed in January 2024 just recently. So, um, I mean, you could check again online. You can call the 1-800 number, but you're probably going to get something in the mail soon. You're probably going to get something because it's been a couple of weeks. Maybe it's or they're just still thinking about it. But yeah, keep an eye on that. I think you're in that time where it's something you should get something soon. So,
Okay.
but I'm glad it's moving. That's good. Well, I appreciate you having me on today's show. I have to hop off to do some more immigration things, but hopefully this helped with answering some questions, and because there's a lot of changes going on, and I'm glad I could be a resource for everyone on today's show.
I think, yeah, that was absolutely great. And we are really honored to have a show with you, Ruby. It was my first time that I'm connecting with you. And I really enjoyed. I mean, I didn't know that you were, this energetic and this great in answering the questions. So I really loved it. And hoping to have another show with you. And soon we are going to connect again. But that's okay. You can continue with your work. Of course, we know how busy your schedules are. So that's completely all right. And thank you so much for joining us again. And it was really a pleasure having you, and have a great day.
You too. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Ruby. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Okay, friends. So those who have joined us, I think it was really great having you guys. And Jadav, Shaukat, Jose, and Seema, thank you so much for being here. In case if you have any other doubts regarding our today's topic or anything, if you're navigating any complexities in your immigration journey, then please go ahead and get in touch with Attorney Ruby Pars. The number is 713-589-2085. And you can also email her on the email ID contact@rubypowerslaw.com with the website www.rubypowerslaw.com. And till the time, friends, that's it for today's episode. I hope that you liked it. And if you have liked watching this webinar, then make sure that you like this. Also, share this with someone who really needs to know about the alternatives of the H-1B visa. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing it really motivates us, and we obviously come up with amazing shows and amazing attorneys every week so that you can get more and more information. And also press the bell icon so that whenever we come up with any new video or any new webinar, you get the notification and you directly come up and participate in our webinars. So, till then, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Stay connected, stay empowered, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration Talk Show. Meanwhile, I'm Sam signing off for now.